She never forgot the moment the doorbell rang that quiet night, the sound slicing through the stillness as if carrying a message she didn't yet understand. Ariel had been standing alone in the living room, the soft lamp casting a warm glow over the scattered blankets on the couch. Her husband, Rowan, was away on one of his long work shifts again. She had grown used to evenings spent listening to the hum of the house, though loneliness often crept in like a gentle, unwelcome guest. But that night felt different, as if something was coming. When she opened the door, she blinked, stunned to see Rowan's uncle, Linford, standing beneath the porch light with a small travel bag over his shoulder. His smile was gentle, almost apologetic, and his eyes carried a kind of peaceful kindness she hadn't expected. "Ariel," he murmured softly, "I hope it's not too late. I was passing through town and thought I should stop by." She stepped aside, unsure but comforted by the familiar family resemblance he shared with Rowan, the same calm posture, the same steady, sincere eyes. Linford had always been one of the few relatives who made her feel at ease. He carried the sort of quiet strength that made the air feel safer somehow. Inside, the house warmed instantly. Or maybe it was the relief of having company after so many nights alone. They sat at the kitchen table, steam rising from freshly made tea. Ariel watched him wrap his hands around the cup the way Rowan often did, and a soft ache pressed at her chest. "It's good to see you," she said, trying to sound casual, though emotion blended into her voice. "It's been so long." "Too long," he agreed. "I wanted to check on you both, especially you. I know Rowan's schedule keeps him away more than either of you hoped." His words were gentle, not probing, yet they landed with surprising accuracy. She lowered her gaze, feeling her breath soften. "It's been a lot," she admitted quietly. "Some days I feel strong, other days I wonder if I'm just pretending." Linford didn't fill the silence. He allowed it to settle in the room, giving her space to breathe. Somehow, that made her feel heard more than any advice ever could. Outside, a breeze rustled the wind chimes Rowan had hung last spring. Their soft notes drifted inside, delicate and soothing. Ariel took another sip of tea, feeling her shoulders slowly loosen. "I'm glad you came," she whispered, "tonight especially." Linford offered a warm smile. "Sometimes life brings us exactly where we're needed, and sometimes we don't even realize we needed the moment too." His voice held a thoughtful calm, a tone that washed over her like a quiet exhale. And for the first time in days, she felt a sense of peace beginning to form around the edges of her heart. As they talked, small memories surfaced, stories of Rowan's childhood, silly moments from old family gatherings, gentle laughter between sips of tea. Nothing dramatic, but everything healing. And yet, beneath the warmth, Ariel sensed something unspoken lingering in Linford's expression, something tender, something that felt like understanding, but also caution. She couldn't name it yet, but she felt it. Near the end of their conversation, she found herself saying softly, almost without thinking, "If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales." Linford stood and glanced toward the hallway. "Do you mind if I stay the night? I don't want to disturb Rowan by arriving at his workplace this late." "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice even. "You're always welcome here." But as she led him toward the guest room, she noticed a change in his expression. Something gentle, yes, but layered with a quiet weight she didn't yet understand. And when he paused at the doorway, turning back toward her, his voice softened in a way that sent a small ripple through her chest. "Ariel, there's something I need to talk to you about in the morning." The words settled between them, delicate but unsettling, carrying a quiet promise she couldn't ignore. Her breath caught, and her heart fluttered with sudden questions she wasn't prepared to ask. Ariel barely slept. Even with the house wrapped in silence, her mind kept circling around Linford's last words. Something about the tone he used, soft, steady, but weighted, left her wondering what he carried with him. It wasn't fear she felt, more like anticipation, mixed with the lingering ache of loneliness she had been trying so hard to hide. When morning finally came, she moved quietly around the kitchen, preparing breakfast the way she usually did when Rowan was home. Habit brought comfort, even when she knew he wouldn't walk through the doorway until late evening. As she cracked eggs into a pan, she heard soft footsteps behind her. "Good morning," Linford said gently. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, the soft morning light catching the hints of silver in his hair. He looked rested, but there was a calm seriousness in his eyes, the same look he had last night before he closed the guest room door. "Morning," she answered, offering a small smile. "I hope you slept well." He nodded. "Better than I expected." They sat across from each other at the small table, steam rising from freshly brewed tea. It felt strangely comforting. Two people sharing a quiet morning, each carrying their own unspoken feelings. Linford waited until they had eaten a few bites before he finally exhaled, leaning back slightly. "Ariel, I didn't mean to worry you last night." "You didn't," she said softly, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. He folded his hands together, his fingers steady, his expression thoughtful. "I've been visiting family these past few weeks," he began, "checking in on everyone. Sometimes people need support even when they don't say it out loud." Her heart tightened a little. There was kindness in his tone, but also a depth she wasn't sure how to interpret. "I came here," he continued, "because I sensed you might be carrying more than you let on." Ariel blinked, surprised by how easily he saw through her. "I'm fine," she murmured reflexively. Linford shook his head gently, his voice warm but firm. "You don't have to pretend with me. I know Rowan's schedule has been draining for both of you, and I know how heavy it can feel to be alone so many nights." Hearing someone put her quiet ache into words made her throat tighten. She looked down at her tea, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I miss him so much that the house feels too big and too quiet." Linford's gaze softened, full of empathy rather than judgment. "You're not failing for feeling that way. You're human." His words felt like a small balm on a long, unspoken wound. She swallowed, letting the warmth of his reassurance settle in slowly. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing that." He nodded, but his expression carried something more, something she couldn't name. "And there's another reason I came," he said quietly. A gentle chill swept through her chest. "What is it?" she asked. Linford hesitated, choosing his next words with care. "Rowan called me last week. He asked me to check on you. He was worried. He said he sensed something had shifted, and he didn't know how to reach you through the distance." Ariel froze. Rowan had said nothing, not a word, and the thought of him noticing her falling quiet around him left her breath trembling. "He asked you to come here?" she whispered. "Not directly," Linford clarified softly, "but the moment he said he was worried, I knew I needed to see you myself. I wanted to make sure you didn't feel alone in this." Ariel pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed by the sudden swirl of emotion, relief, guilt, tenderness, and a fragile kind of ache. "I didn't realize he noticed," she murmured. Linford leaned forward, his voice lowering. "He loves you deeply, but he also knows that love loses its way when silence grows." She blinked, surprised by the quiet power of those words. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen. It was Rowan. Her breath hitched. The timing felt almost too perfectly strange, like the universe decided the moment needed one more layer of emotion. She looked back at Linford, who watched her with calm, steady eyes. "Go ahead," he said, softly. But something in his tone made her heart flutter, not in fear, but in anticipation of what Rowan might say and what this unexpected morning was leading toward. Ariel hesitated before answering the call, her thumb hovering over the screen as if the moment itself needed a breath. When she finally picked up, her voice came out softer than she expected. Hello? Rowan's familiar warmth spilled through the speaker. Hey, love, I'm on a short break and thought I'd check on you. Her eyes closed for a moment. It felt strange, comforting, but also tender in a way she hadn't felt in days. I'm okay, she whispered. Just making breakfast. Linford stopped by last night. Oh, good, he reached you, Rowan said, relief slipping into his tone. I'm glad. I wanted him to be sure you weren't feeling too lonely. A quiet ache formed under her ribs. She glanced at Linford, who sat quietly at the table, giving her space without looking away. There was warmth in his expression, the kind that made the room feel safer. Why didn't you tell me you were worried? She asked gently. Rowan was silent for a moment. I didn't want to make you feel guilty. I know how much you try to hold things together. I just sensed something, and I wanted you to have someone around in case you needed a softer moment. His honesty wrapped around her like a warm scarf. I miss you, she heard herself say softly. I miss you too, he replied, voice thick with sincerity. And I promise I'm trying to make things better. I can feel how the distance has been affecting us. Ariel swallowed hard, unsure if she should continue this conversation with Linford, quietly listening only a few feet away. But somehow, having him there didn't make her feel exposed. Instead, it grounded her, made her feel less alone in the shifting emotions she had kept tucked away. I'm okay, she murmured again. Just tired. I know. We'll talk tonight, all right? All right. When she hung up, the kitchen fell back into a soft hush. She set the phone down slowly and let out a long breath. Linford watched her with quiet understanding. That sounded good, he said gently. It was, she admitted, but it also reminded me how far apart we've drifted without meaning to. Linford nodded thoughtfully, as if he'd heard hundreds of variations of that same truth from different people across the years. Distance doesn't always come from miles, he said softly. Sometimes it's just two hearts trying to stay strong in opposite directions. His words settled deep in her chest. She sank into the chair across from him, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. Do you think we can fix it? Linford offered a small warm smile. I've seen love mend in quieter ways than you'd expect. Sometimes all it takes is honesty and a moment to breathe. She didn't know why, but something in the way he said that loosened the knot she'd been holding inside her. I'm scared, she whispered, not of losing him, but of him not seeing how hard I'm trying. Linford leaned back slightly, his gaze soft but steady. Ariel, Rowan sees you. He always has. But you've been trying to be strong for so long that you forgot strength doesn't mean silence. Her breath trembled. You deserve support too, he added, not just from Rowan, but from everyone who cares about you. The words reached into her chest with a gentle, unexpected comfort. For a long moment, the two of them sat in silence. Not heavy silence, peaceful, shared silence. The kind that felt like a deep sigh. Then Linford spoke again, voice low and reflective. You know, he said, when I was younger, I nearly lost someone I loved because I thought being quiet made me strong, but silence only builds walls. Ariel looked up. What happened? He smiled sadly. We drifted apart, and by the time I realized my mistake, too much had changed. Her heart pinched a little, sensing the old ache in his tone. That's why I'm telling you this now, he continued, because I see the tenderness between you and Rowan, and I don't want silence to chip away at it. She nodded, grateful in a way she couldn't fully express. Then, unexpectedly, Linford's expression shifted, softening, but carrying something deeper beneath it, something meaningful, something he seemed unsure whether to say. Ariel, he murmured, there's something else I came here to tell you, Something Rowan wanted me to give you in person. Her pulse skipped. What is it? She asked quietly. Linford reached into his pocket, slowly, almost reluctantly, and placed a small folded envelope on the table. Her breath caught as she stared at it, the soft white paper holding a promise she wasn't sure she was ready to open. And yet, she felt the shift in the room as clearly as a heartbeat. Ariel stared at the envelope as if it carried a pulse of its own. Linford didn't push it toward her. He simply let it rest between them, his calm presence making the moment feel steadier, even as her heart fluttered with quiet uncertainty. She finally reached for it, her fingers brushing the soft paper. He wrote this? She murmured. Linford nodded gently. He asked me to deliver it when the moment felt right. Her breath wavered. Why didn't he just give it to me himself? He said he didn't want his words to add pressure when both of you already felt stretched thin. He hoped a letter might reach you in a way his tired voice couldn't. Ariel closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting that settle inside her. Rowan wasn't perfect. She never expected him to be, but he had always been earnest, always trying to love her in the ways he knew how. Maybe the long hours had buried pieces of that love beneath exhaustion. She opened her eyes and unfolded the envelope carefully, pulling out a single sheet of paper filled with Rowan's unmistakable handwriting, steady, slightly slanted, familiar enough to make her chest tighten. Linford quietly stood and walked a few steps away, giving her space without leaving the room completely. He leaned against the doorway, hands tucked into his pockets, gaze lowered in respectful distance. Ariel began reading. My love, I'm writing this because I sense your silence more than your words. I don't want you to carry everything alone. I know I've been gone too many nights, and every time I look at the clock, I imagine you wondering if I still see you the way I used to. I do, more than ever. Her throat tightened. Sometimes I feel I'm failing you, and sometimes I'm afraid to say that out loud. I worry that you think I've grown distant, but the truth is, I've just been tired and lost in trying to provide instead of remembering to simply be present. Her eyes blurred slightly, warmth rising behind them. If you're hurting, I want to know. If you're tired, I want to share it with you. If you feel lonely, I want to find ways to make the house feel like home again. I don't ever want you to think you're going through life alone. Ariel covered her mouth, emotions rising like a soft, overwhelming tide. She continued reading, hands trembling just a little. That's why I asked Linford to check on you. Not because I doubted you, but because I trust him to see when someone is carrying more than they show. And because I needed someone I love to make sure the woman I love wasn't quietly breaking. A quiet sound escaped her, a half sob, half breath. She read the final paragraph slowly. I promise, when this busy season ends, I'll come home earlier. I'll try harder, and I'll listen better. I can't undo the distance, but I can bridge it if you'll let me. Please don't hide your heart from me, Ariel. It's the one thing in this world I never want to lose. Always, Rowan. The letter slipped slightly in her hands, and she pressed it to her chest, feeling the warmth radiate through her. Linford stepped closer, but kept his voice gentle. He meant every word. I know, she whispered. I just forgot how deeply he feels things. Linford nodded thoughtfully. Rowan has always been that way. Quiet love, strong heart. Ariel sat back down, exhaling shakily. I should have told him how lonely I felt instead of trying to pretend everything was okay. We all hide things when we're trying to protect someone, Linford said softly. But love grows best in honesty, not silence. Ariel looked up at him gratefully. Thank you for bringing this, for being here. His eyes softened. "I'm glad I could help. You're family, and I don't like seeing anyone I care about carrying weight alone." There was something in the way he said that, gentle, sincere, layered with a quiet sadness she couldn't quite decode. She wondered if he saw pieces of his own past in theirs. For a moment, neither spoke. The house felt still, as if holding the fragile tenderness of the morning. Finally, Ariel folded the letter, holding it as though it were fragile glass. "I need to talk to Rowan tonight," she said. "No more hiding." Linford smiled, a small, relieved smile that looked almost proud. "I think that's exactly what he hopes you'll do." But then, as if remembering something, his expression shifted, softly, almost hesitantly. "There's one more thing I need to share with you before I leave." Ariel's breath stilled. His voice lowered just a little, carrying weight, but no fear. "It's about Rowan, and about what he told me before I left to come here." The room felt still again, quiet, expectant, delicate. She leaned forward, ever so slightly. "What did he say?" she whispered. Ariel felt her heartbeat steady as she waited for Linford to continue. The morning light had shifted across the kitchen, softening everything it touched, yet the air carried a fragile stillness that made every word feel heavier. Linford took a slow breath, choosing each thought with care. "Before I left to visit you," he said gently, "Rowan told me something he doesn't say easily, and I think you deserve to hear it exactly as he meant it." "What did he say?" Linford met her gaze with quiet sincerity. He said he worries that in trying so hard to be enough, he's forgotten how to let you feel cared for too. He told me he fears you've been carrying the weight of their life together alone. And he wanted me to make sure you knew something important. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "What is it?" "He said," Linford continued softly, "tell her she is the heart of our home, and tell her I will never let distance make her doubt that again." Ariel pressed a hand over her mouth, her eyes filling instantly. Those were the kinds of words Rowan rarely managed to say aloud, even on his most open days. Hearing them now, spoken through someone who carried them with such tenderness, made her chest ache with a mix of relief and longing. "I didn't know he felt all that," she murmured. Linford offered a small nod. "Sometimes people love deeply but quietly, and sometimes they forget quiet love still needs to be heard." She breathed in slowly, the truth settling deep into her heart. "I should have talked to him sooner," she said. "We both kept trying to stay strong for each other and ended up drifting because of it." "There's no shame in that," Linford replied. "Most relationships go through seasons of silence. What matters is finding your way back before silence becomes distance." Ariel nodded, letting the weight of the moment ease through her. "Thank you," she said softly, "for handling all of this so gently, for seeing me when I didn't quite know how to speak." Linford smiled, warm, steady, reassuring. "You don't have to thank me. I care about you both, and I want your home to be peaceful again." A quiet warmth spread in her chest. She believed him, and she felt grateful in a way she couldn't easily express. For a moment, the room fell into a peaceful hush, the kind that often arrives after tears, after truths, after the soft settling of emotions that have been waiting to be understood. Finally, Linford exhaled. "I should get on the road soon. I promised a few others I'd stop by before the weekends." Ariel stood with him, gathering her steadying breath. "Let me walk you to the door." They moved through the living room together, the house feeling different now, lighter somehow, as though the walls themselves had shifted from holding silence to holding hope. At the doorway, Linford paused and looked at her with kind eyes. "You're stronger than you realize," he said gently, "but don't ever feel you have to be strong alone. Ariel felt emotion rise again, softer this time. I won't. I'm going to talk to Rowan tonight, honestly, openly, no more hiding behind tired smiles. That's good, he said with a warm nod. He'll be grateful for that. She stepped forward and wrapped him in a gentle, grateful embrace. He returned it with quiet steadiness, nothing overbearing, nothing complicated, just reassurance, just peace. When they parted, Linford gave her one last encouraging smile before stepping out into the day. The breeze carried a sense of renewal as he walked down the path, his presence leaving behind a calm she hadn't felt in weeks. Ariel lingered at the doorway for a long moment after he left. Then she went back inside, sat at the kitchen table, and read Rowan's letter once more. This time, the words didn't ache. They softened her. They made her feel seen. And they reminded her that love, when nurtured, always finds its way back through the noise. That evening, when Rowan returned home, she would sit with him. She would open her heart, and she would let him open his. Because peace had walked into her home unexpectedly, through a quiet visit, a heartfelt letter, and the reminder that love becomes strongest when both hearts finally speak. And for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to begin again.